And let me welcome each and every one of y'all who are joining us on our social media pages. We thank God for your presence and we thank God for your prayers in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
That's Exodus, the 3rd chapter. It's Exodus 3, starting with verse number 1.
Amen.
It's Exodus chapter 3, starting with verse number 1. And you're going to see these words of something very similar. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside. Some translations may say far side, some may say the west side of the desert. And came to the mountain of God, even to Oreb. And this morning, let me share with you some thoughts and words from the subject, the other side. The other side. Many of us, especially those of us in the church and those of us who are Christian, when we hear the other side, normally we think about death. We think about the other side of life.
Yeah.
But we enjoy the comfort that comes from repetition and redoing.
Okay.
And if you don't believe me, I can prove it.
Right.
If you grew up in any traditional style church, try to change something in the church. And what is the first thing you will hear?
We always did it like that.
We've always did it like that.
Yeah.
And Pastor, we've never done it that way before.
Yeah.
Repetition and redoing allow us to move. And not only allow us to move, but allow us to move ahead with no thought, no concentration, and or no pre-planning. For the most part, because of repetition and redoing things over and over again, we could almost be on autopilot.
Right.
Autopilot. And most of us are too often quick to reject the idea that good things come from change.
Yeah.
And for this reason, change often has to wait. It has to wait for an opportunity to sneak up on us or catch us by surprise. It has to wait for us to find ourselves involved, moving in uncertainty and lacking for answers. It has to surprise us. You know, we don't like change. And that was Moses' state of mind when he fled from Egypt. Moses had spent his academic life under the tutelage of some of the greatest minds in Pharaoh's court. They were grooming him. They groomed him to become a ruler over Egypt, and now he found himself in a strange land. He was forced to leave Egypt because some would like to consider he arrogantly took the law into his own hand by killing an Egyptian. And now we find Moses, once a favorite of Pharaoh. Now he was ostracized and a wanderer cast out beyond the borders of Egypt. From this point, his journey would be God ordained. And clearly, that was something Moses needed to learn. And not only he needed to learn something, he needed to learn that something that would never, ever have been found in the books of Egyptian scribes. He had to learn from God himself, God of all creation. It reminded me and made me think about how we all sometimes God would change our course. He would send us to places to talk to us and to speak to us. Sometimes it might be on a sick bed. Sometimes it might be in your own homes due to unemployment. Sometimes it could be the change of location of your job, or the change of a job, or the removal of a job. But sometimes we have to realize that God will change us. Here we have God changing Moses. Moses now have a wife. Zipporah. Moses now have a new job. He's not one of the court leaders. He's now a sheep herder. The man once dressed in regalia, in elaborate clothing, and slated to be the next Pharaoh of Egypt. Now, he had a new career tending to sheep and goats and smelling just like them.
Wow.
Moses, the Bible tells us, he went from the throne room to the desert's gloom. Moses went from owning slaves to being a descendant of slaves. He went from having all the answers to having not a single answer.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read the scriptures, you've at least seen the movie. You've seen the cartoons and how Moses found himself in the desert.
Right.
Placed there by God himself in an isolated existence, tending to sheep for the priests of Midian. And it was a far cry from being Pharaoh's favorite son. It reminded me of a journey that I took many years ago. Coming up in different churches, getting licensed and ordained to preach in some great churches in Atlanta, only to find myself cast out to a little city by the name of Rutledge. In the city of Rutledge, no one knew who I was.
Right.
No one cared about where I came from. No one knew any of the things that I held so dearly in my life. They didn't care about any of that. That was a place that God sent me far away from the comfort zone that I once knew. Sent me away from church as I knew it. Sent me away from people as I knew it. It was a place where God will allow me to be able to come together and come to grips with who I was.
Yeah.
It's amazing how sometimes because of where you've been and the things you've done, we have a sense sometimes to get a little arrogant. And I never considered myself arrogant. Maybe some would disagree, but it was good for me knowing that I came out of a church where it had so many different ministries going on. It was good for me to know that I felt good being able to teach classes with sometimes up to 50 and on occasions maybe almost near 100 students in a Bible class.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I was a little arrogant thinking that, you know, I am somebody's preacher because I have the ears of a lot of people. But how many of you know that God will change your environment? He will change your location. How many of you know that our best lessons often come through unique learning experiences?
That's it.
Yes.
And I call them unique learning experiences just to kind of sugarcoat what I probably could have called them. Because when you think about it, when God changed you from a job that you've been working on 10, 20, 30 years to a job that you would have never considered.
Yeah.
When God moved you from one location of a house that you've grown so comfortable in, that you love dearly, to a place that you would have never moved to, things happen. Getting laid off can lead to a new and better career if we allow it to happen.
That's it.
Being forced to downsize can teach you the importance of saving and having more assets and money available.
Yeah.
Tragedy can force you to learn to lean on the Lord when there's no one else you can lean on. The Egyptians, they revered Pharaoh, but they mocked shepherds. And Moses was now a shepherd for Jethro, his father-in-law.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did Moses do with this change in his direction? Being on the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the other side of up is down. The other side of in is out. And here we have Moses. He was once a Pharaoh, once in the court, once inside the kingdom. Now he's on the other side of the coin. He's on the other side of the spectrum. He eventually became the leader of more than 1 million people.
Yes.
The Hebrew nation, he led his people out of slavery. Moses was able to create a new nation. He created a new nation, a nation of God's chosen people. The years that preceded this quest, those years, what we call in the desert, would turn out to be vital preparation for his future.
That's it.
Yes.
I remember going back to Rutledge, Georgia again. When I first had the opportunity to go down there as a pastor, which was my first assignment as a senior pastor, I was going with reservations, if I may be honest. I was told by people, if I were you, I wouldn't go. Ain't nothing down there.
Yeah.
The people don't want to do nothing down there. I was told so much, but being what I consider a young preacher with bright eyes, full of hope, full of promise, I go down there and I'm going to change stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they are 2 Sunday church now, but they're going to be every Sunday when I get there. They going to do this when I get there. They going to do that when I get there. And it's amazing how the desert experience can prepare you for something greater if we let it.
That's it.
Yes.
The scripture says that his training took place on the other side of the desert. I told y'all, some say backside, some say west side. But we know it was on the side that he wasn't on. So we call it the other side.
That's it.
And here we see Moses in the desert plain. Some say almost 500 miles beyond the fertile land of Egypt. Egypt, the land flowing with milk and honey, green pastures, fresh water, now find itself in the desert with infrequent water and very little greenery to look at. Here, this place called a mountain of Horeb, which means glowing. And this is where God's training of Moses began, at the footstool of the mountain. And we see here that Moses, where he was at the base camp of this mountain, he was able to enjoy a good meal and the company of his family each evening as a shepherd. But on the backside, where he drew himself away from his home, he met God. The backside, the other side, the far west side of the desert is where we are drawn to God. I would like to think, and some have actually told me, I became better because of my desert experience. We often become better when we have our own desert experience. We don't like going through. We don't like changing. We don't want to go back to school. We don't want to get a new trade, a new skill set. We like doing what we've always done because we've done it so long. We've gotten so comfortable. We could do it in our sleep. I find it fascinating how we love the comforts of things. You know, I've gotten to a point sometimes, even in our marriages, we can get so comfortable where we on autopilot. You know, I've gotten to the point now where I don't feel like I have to think as much because all that I have to do is ask the question and I know I get the answer from my spouse and my wife that I need. Why do I need to think when I know she already have the answer? So we have to understand that, yes, we might be in an environment where the answer is always available. We might be in an environment where we are so used to doing what we do that we could do it in our sleep. But God will oftentimes change something to allow us to be made better.
That's it.
God drew Moses away from the safety and familiarity of his surroundings so he could get the sheep herders full attention. Bear in mind, we never heard of Moses being a sheep herder before he came out to Midian. It's amazing how sometimes there's a skill set inside of us that we don't even know exists until it's been forced to call upon. The Bible says that he was living in the court of Pharaoh, but we know he was born to descendants of slaves. So it was already in him possibly to know how to be a shepherd. He probably already had an idea of what sheep's like based off of this family genetics inside of his body. We are like that too. Let one of us lose a job. Let one of us get our career sidetracked. We'll see a job application and say, oh, that don't look like that's hard to do. I could probably do that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you get there and you start doing it and you excel in it, only to realize that there are several generations in your family who already had mastered that trade that you had never did before in your life. But now all of a sudden you're succeeding in it because God took you away from the comforts of the job or the career that you had and gave you something else altogether different.
Yes.
There, we have to trust in God and trust on God, because now we are confronted with doing a work that we have never done for some people who are expecting something and demanding something of us, and we have to be ready to do so.
Yes, God.
Yes, Lord.
I remember when I was in school years ago, I took a class called wood shop. And in that wood shop class, when we had to get ready to make something, because we didn't get new stuff to make stuff out of, we got a lot of old stuff. And one of the first things we had to do is called refinishing. Refinishing. That's when you start stripping away and taking away all the stuff that you know you can't use to get down to the stuff that you can use. And in this craftsmanship, that's how I see God doing a lot of us sometimes in our life. He have to strip us. He have to get us in places and take off each layer, because if you notice, whenever you ask somebody a truthful or a straightforward question, you have to get through layers to get the answer you want. I remember one time, Tisa and I, we had a conversation when you ask somebody who's single, what are they looking for in a mate? And they'll tell you, I want them to be tall, dark, and handsome. Pretty teeth, big fat bank account, love kids, love people. I want him to be socially outgoing. I want him to be able to have all type of traits that I look for and desire in a man. And after a year, maybe 2, maybe 5, maybe 10, you come back and ask that same person what they're looking for in a mate. I just want them to have some good teeth. It's amazing how we can change when time seems to take a long time to give us what we want.
Right. Help us.
Some of you know what I mean when I say God took you to the other side. You don't have to share it on this particular worship experience, but we all, if we're honest, have been in a situation where we thought things would go one way, but God allowed things to go another.
Yes.
I love talking to kids when they come out of school or getting ready to come out of school, be it seniors in high school or college, because they are so full of hope and determination. They just know they're finna go in with the very first interview, with the very first resume they hand out. They just know they finna go in and become CEO of somebody's company. With no experience, no training, barely graduated, thank you Lordy, and they thinking they gonna go and get $150,000 a year job, doing what they went to school for, telling everybody what to do, working when they want to work, vacations 5 weeks a year, and working from home if they choose. Only to find out that after you get out of school, you might have to work at a Target, Treasury Drug, or whatever, Goodwill, or whatever, Magic Market, or 7-Eleven, or whatever store that you never imagined that you would work at, with a degree in your hand. Now that God has allowed us to get the experience and get the training, there's this sense of arrogance that we might possess. So God will have to strip us down, and you might have to start out in the mailroom. You might have to start out on fries and work your way up to shakes. But God will allow this to happen to get our attention so He can prepare us and train us for what He wanted us to be. I'll never forget when I was working at the bank, thinking that I had a very good job. I liked my job very much, and I felt like I was on a fast track to one of the highest positions that I thought I would be able to attain. And all of a sudden, I started feeling somewhat disgruntled. Not a disgruntled employee, but I was disgruntled with what I thought my life should be. I thought I should be making even more money with not that much experience. I thought I'd be doing even more, having even more people reporting to me not knowing that you have to work your way up. But all of a sudden, I felt this thing happening to my mind, my heart, and my body. And what happened was, I didn't know initially. So I began to go and talk with my pastor and started explaining to him some of the things that I was feeling, some of the things I thought was happening. And he was able to help me to see things a little clearly by asking me certain questions and giving me certain assignments. And what we both agreed and what I found out was God was preparing me for something different.
That's it.
Yes.
And God would do the same for you.
For you, yes. Yes.
Here I am working at the bank, feeling good, thinking I'm looking good, thinking I got enough money in my pocket, thinking I'm doing, if not more, well, I thought I was doing more than most people my age at the time.
Yeah.
But God had something different. All of a sudden, I started understanding that God wasn't going to let me stay there too long. And how I didn't really know how I knew that, but I just felt like I wasn't going to be able to stay there as long as I thought I would initially.
Yeah.
Because what had happened, God had begun to prepare me to come and preach the ministry and preach in the ministry as a public vocation. And as I started preparing for that, I didn't realize that I would have to go back to school.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had to start learning what they say as a trade by shadowing and being mentored by leaders. So after going through some of this, all the schools I had to go back and start getting trained and educated in, I got to a point where I couldn't take any more evening and weekend classes. I had to make a decision. Do I leave my job after only 10 years of what I thought would possibly be a 30-year career in banking? Or do I try to wait and finish school at another time? I chose what I thought was the best path that God would have me to choose by going to school and trusting God with something else.
Yes.
And during that time, God provided, but not like how I wanted him to. Because on the other side of me being in banking, a career that I thought I was loving and doing good in, came a career in selling cars, teaching, working retail, all the kind of jobs that I thought I would never do. Not with a degree in my hand, but on the other side of that degree, on the other side of working in banking, was some jobs that I never thought I would do, but was some of the best opportunities to meet some wonderful people and get some training and skill set that I'm still using today.
All right.
Yes.
One of the best trainings I got was as a seller of cars in the car industry, was understanding people and what motivates them to spend money, and how people love to spend money and they're just waiting and anxiously want to give it to you if you know how to get it from them. And you know, and in knowing so and in doing so, I thought that I wouldn't want to use that skill set in a church setting. But how many of you know I erred? Because why get a skill set, why get a training and not use it for God's kingdom?
That's it. Yeah.
You know, why learn how to manage a store and not use those skills in God's kingdom? Why learn how to teach middle school kids, coach little league kids, and not use that skill set in the kingdom for God's business? A lot of us today, we have some great skill sets. We have some great talents and have never used it for God.
That's it.
Some of us, we can cook, we can bake, we can fry, we can sew, we can stitch, we can sing, we can dance, we can teach, we can lead, we can do all these things. We are people, we know how to greet people, we know how to draw people, and yet when it comes to God's kingdom, it don't take all that.
All right.
Maybe it's time for some to go back to go to the other side.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that God needs to come and take you to the other side right now, but it might be better if you were willing to volunteer as opposed to being told and taken there by God himself.
That's good.
Moses wasn't the only one that had to go through this. Joshua had to go through this. And if you're honest, maybe some of you all have gone through this, where you were one way and God took you to the other side,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
came another way.
That's it.
There are times in our life that we have to realize no matter what we have done, how comfortable we are, and how good we are at it, change can and sometimes will come your way.
Yes.
March 2020, a month and year most of us would never forget.
Right.
We were told that there's a disease or a pandemic or an epidemic that's going around, and we will have to shut down for 2 weeks, we were told.
Yeah.
And 2 years and plus later, we're still in the same situation, having to get an additional third and possibly a fourth booster. Now they want you to take the flu and the pneumonia shot.
Yeah.
Now they're throwing shingles at you. They're throwing monkeypox at you. You know, some of us are being sent to the other side, and we are kicking and fighting, trying not to go there.
Yeah.
Some of us couldn't wait to get back into the church physically. Some of us couldn't wait to get back into the office physically because maybe your family has gotten on your last nerve. Maybe that husband, that wife, if you stay in the house with them one more day, y'all find yourself in divorce court. You know, it's amazing how when God is preparing us for the other side, we are unwilling. The only reason Moses went to the other side because he was running for his life.
Yes.
Right.
I've ran 5Ks, I've run 100 meters, I've run 40 meters, but I've never ran for my life. Running for your life will cause you to go into places you would never go and do things you would never do.
Right.
What's your other side that you believe God is getting ready to prepare for you? And some of you might think you don't have one. But there's an old phrase that says trust and believe.
Yeah.
Trust and believe. If God hasn't sent it to you yet, He's preparing it for you right now.
All right.
Yes, Lord.
We all will have to go through that experience of the other side.
Yes.
There have been times that I felt as though my pocket was fat, full of money.
Yeah.
And there have been times that my pocket was flat as a pancake because of the lack of money, the other side.
Yes.
There have been times that I felt like I could run 10 miles. Then there have been times I felt like I couldn't run 10 feet because of the other side. There have been times I thought I was such a great husband. Then there are times I've been reminded and I've been realized that maybe I was the worst thing ever made.
Yeah.
There have been times that I thought I was the greatest dad on earth. And then there are times that might be that I might realize you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about being a dad. There's some other side experiences that we all, if we're honest enough, we can believe and say that we have had that experience. There have been times in your life you never thought you'd be doing what you did.
Yeah. That's it.
A lot of times, the lack of something will cause us to do something that we never thought we would do.
Yes.
There are people that like to ask questions, would you, could you do it for a certain dollar amount? How much will it take? And in doing that, there's these people who will put a dollar amount.
Yeah.
They have this thing I just saw on TikTok the other day. Would you slap your spouse for $1 billion? And the wife turned to her husband, she said, you know, we not money driven like that because, you know, if we were money driven, we wouldn't be the type of couple we are. You know, we believe in love, we believe in faith, and we would never let money dictate you putting your hands on me like that. And the husband, you know, they did one of them broken records, scratch. Then the husband came out. For $1 billion, I would stand on this box, I would put powder on my hand, I would jump off and slap you so hard. And I said, it's just amazing how you just don't know people when it comes to money.
Right.
People would do something for $1 billion. I would let somebody slap me for some of the money. But some people feel as though money could never get them to do anything. And I have a word for people like that. That just hadn't been offered enough money. Because if somebody offers you enough, you'll do something that you never thought you would do. And you know, you might want to look all churchy this morning. You might want to be all sanctimonious this morning. But let somebody offer you the right amount. You'll be thinking, God knows my heart. You know, it's just only one slip up. I've done more in my life. I've messed up before. We would justify it if it was presented in the right way.
Yes.
Our other side.
Yes.
We have to realize that fear sometimes will keep us from the other side, but on the other side of fear
Yeah.
is faith.
That's
Yes,
it.
yes.
That's it.
And that is what I want to close on this text.
Yes, Lord.
Faith is the other side of
That's
most
it.
of our experiences in life.
Yes.
Every time we fear, we should be reminded of the word faith.
Yeah.
That's it.
Every time we say, I don't know about that, we should be able to say, oh, this is going to work.
Yes.
You know, for every action, there's a reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got to quit letting fear be the final answer.
That's it.
Right.
Yes,
We got to realize that there's something on the other side of everything we do. You know, they always talk about there's more than one side of a story. Yes, there's your side, there's my side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to realize that we have to understand that there's always the other side. We might not like it, we might not even appreciate it, and we might try to avoid it if at all possible. But don't be afraid of the other side. Be it death, be it finances, be it relationships, be it careers. Faith yourself through it. Walk yourself through it.
Yes.
And go through it with the joy of the Lord being your strength.
That's it.
Yes, Lord.
Let's pray.